Okay, great. So you guys are all here for the fixed asset webinar. So let me introduce myself. My name is Mathieu Suhandynata. So I'm an implementation consultant for Agilyx UK. I've been for about 3 years, and my overall UBW experience is coming up to 6 years now. So I'm well versed in the UBW world, as you might say. So apart from fixed assets, I'm quite familiar with all the modules as well, except payroll. But other than that, I'm quite experienced. So I know my way around the system. And so hopefully by the end of this webinar, you guys might take a thing or two and just know a bit, either know a bit more about fixed assets, or if you're already using it, find out a bit of tips and tricks as well. So, okay. So the agenda for today is we've got the introduction to fixed assets, and then why a fixed asset system or a fixed asset module. And then we're just going to go through a simple create an asset scenario and what it looks like in the system as well. And then finally, we're just going to end with a Q&A. Okay. So a bit of introduction to fixed assets. Just because we've got a mixed bag of attendees, I wasn't sure whether people are new to fixed assets or people are recording a fixed asset register, or whether you guys are already using the fixed asset module. So I'm just going to cover the basics for a bit and then move on from there. So an introduction to fixed assets. Whether you're a small company or an NC, it is important to know the requirements for tracking and depreciating fixed assets. Tracking these fixed assets is essential for good accountability and accurate reporting. So what is a fixed asset? So a fixed asset is a possession that brings value to your organization in which cost is spread over its useful life. Okay, so I'll throw in an example. Let's say you purchased a vehicle. You purchased it in 2016 as per the diagram. So if we treated that purchase as an expense, you would see a large hit in your financial books for that year. See? But instead, if we treated it as a fixed asset, we are able to divide the cost up over the assumed useful life of this vehicle. And so because we do this, therefore when we look at our reports and our our financial health, it would look more normal, as you would say. You know, it wouldn't be skewed towards a particular year just because you purchased a vehicle in that year. So we can do this because we know the vehicle will bring us value throughout its lifetime. Okay. So examples of fixed assets would be, so I've put down categories for fixed assets, some general categories. So you got land, building, fixtures and fittings, plant and equipment, and motor vehicles. So examples of that is if you created a new office, or you created if you added air conditioning units to your office, or you're in the IT department and you've purchase a set of new laptops for new employees, or mobile phones, stuff like that. Like company vehicles is also, we can also put it on the fixed asset register. If you put in new chairs or new desks in the office as well. So there's a lot of things that we can put into the fixed asset register. It's essentially anything that you purchase that will bring value to your company over a certain lifetime or lifetime period. Okay. So in saying that, we mentioned some examples in the previous slide, but could we not say that, you know, a pen or a notepad is also a fixed asset? But I think the key here is that for an expense to be an asset, it must be high value. Because, like, let's take the example of a pen. So if we consider a pen as a fixed asset, we could spread the cost of it over a year, but if the cost of the pen is £1, it wouldn't make a big difference in the bigger picture. So, okay, so Matthew, so you might be asking, Matthew, at what point is an expense high value? So unfortunately, there is no one right answer. This is more of a business decision. You know, I've seen companies where they use £300 as the starting point of their fixed assets, or some say £500 as the starting point. So this all depends on your business policy and what you would consider as a fixed asset. But you know, at the end of the day, it's not just about the nominal amount; it's the actual item as well. So if you want, you know, if you want a phone in your fixed asset register, but the phone costs less than £300, then by all means put that into the fixed asset register, because it will bring value to your company over the lifetime. Okay, so that is the capitalization policy, or that's what we like to call the capitalization policy, which is I guess the threshold of a purchase which would make it a fixed asset. Once we've determined the capitalization policy, we next have to determine the depreciation policy. So the depreciation policy is the act of spreading the useful life, the act of spreading the cost over the useful life. So the useful life being, I guess, the assumed existence of that particular possession. So I've set out some examples down below where the land would have no depreciation, as it would only be reevaluated. But for example, buildings would have a 20-year lifespan. Fixtures and fittings such as desks, chairs, they would fit under, you know, 3 years more or less. Plant and equipment is 5 years, and motor vehicles is also 5 years. So these are just some general, I guess, general accepted lifetimes for these particular groups of assets, but they're not hard rules to follow. I mean, you can have equipment that only lasts 3 years, or you could only have motor vehicles that last 10 years. So these are just general guidelines that you need to, I guess, adhere to. So that's useful life. In terms of depreciation method, there are multiple ways to depreciate, which are, you know, generally accepted accounting standards. So some examples would include straight line, declining balance, etc. So that's another thing you need to determine when you're depreciating your asset. Okay, so why would we use a fixed asset module? Okay, so there are two scenarios here. One would be you haven't used, you don't currently record fixed assets at all, and the other camp would be you currently record your fixed assets, but you do it using a manual process such as Excel spreadsheets. So with a fixed asset module, it's all an automated process. We can post automatically the monthly depreciations and other fixed asset related transactions. So if you've got, you know, additions, you've got sales, disposals, be done using the fixed asset module. And then it's easier to track error and minimize missed journeys. And the important thing is that it's integrated with other UBW modules. So we can see later when we go through the system, but the really simple integration is the purchasing department, once they've received an invoice for a particular set, we can transfer that fixed asset into the fixed asset module. And finally, no need to maintain large, complicated Excel spreadsheets. So from my experience, most clients that I've worked with, Excel spreadsheets that are used to monitor their fixed assets, and how complex it can get, especially if, you know, the person who created that fixed asset no longer works company. You know, one wrong formula and it all goes wrong. You know, you get the wrong numbers and everything. But in the case that the Excel spreadsheet works fine, you need to make sure that you post these transactions into the system, into, you know, whether you're using UBW or another system, you need to remember to post those transactions from your Excel spreadsheet into your accounting system. So by using a fixed asset module, it removes all that, and it removes the error of forgetting to post these transactions, you know. Those are the advantages of using a fixed asset module. Okay, so let's look at the system and let us see some of these advantages in action. Okay, so okay, so I've got I've got UBW open, sorry, and we'll just take a look at the menu really quickly. So we've got the fixed asset module. It sits under the financials folder. So you've got asset master file, you've got inquiries, transaction entry, depreciation, posting, batch input if you're loading assets and asset transactions from an Excel spreadsheet, year-end routines, and your fixed registers. Okay, so first of all, let's look at asset groups. So everything is essentially built around these asset groups. The asset groups determine where these transactions are posted to, as in which accounts they get posted to. But more importantly, they also determine default values for your depreciation start, depreciation method, and lifetime in periods. Okay, so we talked earlier about the useful life and the depreciation method being the two important factors of fixed asset and how the depreciation is calculated. So we can see from here that the asset group holds those information. So let's take a look. Since we've been using motor vehicles as an example, we'll take a look at motor vehicles. So motor vehicles, its depreciation start is the first of the current period. We can change this according to your business policy. So if your assets only start depreciating a month after you purchase it, then always change that to first of next year or first of current year, first of next year. We've got these following options. Okay. Also method, we've got a whole of depreciation methods that we can use. We've got annuity, declining balance, the different types. We've got a manual one and straight line and sum of years digits. So if you guys want an explanation of each of these depreciation methods, I can send you a file, I think, or I can send you something that will give you the different calculations of how UBW will use these methods. So let me know. But most of the time, we use the straight line 1 method, which is just the basically the cost divided by the lifetime in periods to get the monthly depreciation amount. And finally, the lifetime in periods, as it says really, so it's the useful life of particular assets that are going to be in the asset group measured in periods. So we don't measure in years in UBW, months or periods. So in this case, this has a lifetime of 60, which means it's got a 5-year useful life. Okay. We can also default its GL analysis, and also its if we go into the depreciation book, we can also see where these accounts are going to. Okay, so we can determine for capitalization it should hit this account. When it's time to depreciate, it will hit this expense account and also this accumulated depreciation account, and so on and so forth. So what we can take away from this is all the setup that needs to be done is totally upfront, and we can assist to get all the right accounts and everything. But in terms of usability, once all this is set up, all you need to do is run a few reports, and it should calculate and post depreciation for you at every single month end. So you don't need to worry about all these little fidgety details. But also, if you're coming from an Excel spreadsheet, you don't need to do all your admin about creating a new version and setting the asset up for the new month and everything. So this using a fixed asset module removes all that hard for you.
Okay, thank you.
So just back to the panel. Sorry, my laptop's a bit slow, so Okay, I was going to show you a workflow diagram of what we're going to do next, which is create a new asset, and then see how easy is it to depreciate that asset. But my laptop isn't playing me, so we'll just go straight back to the system if it allows me to. Okay, great. Okay, is everyone okay? Okay. Yep. Okay, so to create an asset, just go into the asset master file. Now, there are two ways to create an asset. A third if you Excel, but from a system point of view, we're just looking at the two ways, which is either the going into the asset file or the create asset from invoices. So as I said, the fixed asset module is integrated with the with all the other modules of W. The create asset from invoices screen actually takes any invoices that you code for fixed assets and to this screen here. So let's just ignore these minus these negative values. But what we do, we've got the Terry and Son, Dell Computers, Electuranti Limited. These are invoices that have been coded to a specific account code, and UBW recognizes this as a fixed asset purchase. So UBW, it puts it into this called create invoices. And so what you can think of this screen as is kind of like a to-do list of all the assets that you need to create from the invoices that you've purchased or from the invoices that you've received for purchase orders or supplier invoices. So we just take an example. So let's take this one. And as with all UBW master file item order numbering for assets, in this case, I haven't set it up yet, so I'll just create my own asset number, and then the asset name can be, let's purchase a Batmobile. Okay. And then so the asset group, we've got a list that we saw earlier. So we'll just select motor vehicles. Okay. Just enlarge that. So from the supplier invoice or the purchase invoice, we receive the supplier ID. We can just code the cost center, and we receive the entity, and we also receive the date of it from the invoice. But we can always change this, so let's change it to something from this year, so the 1st of the 9th. So this particular client has a year end of July, so this would fit the got an error there, so we just need to change that again. Yep, happy days. Okay, so the amount is transferred to from the invoice. And so in this screen as well, we can actually create multiple assets from that one invoice. So for example, if that invoice had 3 laptops, we could create 3 individual laptops, and then just split the cost according to the invoice. But at the moment, we'll look at the example of one asset. We've got the asset details up here, and now if we look down below, we can see the asset amount, but also we can see the depreciation method and the lifetime, which it got from the asset group motor vehicles, which we saw earlier in the asset group screen. So it's as easy as that. We didn't change anything down here. We only, essentially what we did was gave it an asset ID, gave it an asset name, chose the asset group, and assuming that everything comes through from the invoice and nothing additional needs to be coded that wasn't an invoice, then those are the only 3 fields that you need to enter. So we can hit save. And then so we got a confirmation. The transaction has been saved with registration transaction ID. The asset has been saved with ID 180. Okay. So to make the connection between the asset module and the GL module, we need to do post transactions. So there is a posting folder. What we can do is run this report, asset ID 180. Run that. So now we see on this screen, it's currently processing. And if we look at maintenance of order reports, the report is done. So if we look at our inquiries, I've set up an inquiry called FA detailed report. Very complex. And then we run it for all. Now we can see that that asset 180 is now in our fixed asset register. Okay, so it's got an asset cost of 18,000 and it's remaining. So this report is looking at remaining useful life as at today or as at this month. So it has been 7 months since September, which is why it says 53 and not 60. Okay, so that's essentially how to put a fixed asset into the fixed asset register. And now, because we've capitalized that asset, it's now recognized into the appropriate accounts. And now we can get into our depreciations. So depreciations have their own folders. So we can go in there. And then the depreciation, so depreciation is actually a 3-step process. So you've got the depreciation proposal, depreciation confirmation, and then we need to post it into the GL. So we have to run a posting confirmation. So what I've done is I've just automated all of that. So we only have to run it. We only have to run one report. So I've created a new variant called auto post depreciation. And then we can determine the depreciation period. What this depreciation is, it's the period up until in which you want to depreciate. In which you want to depreciate. Sorry. So when I say April 2018, that means any assets that have not been depreciated up to April 2018 will be depreciated. So this means that if I enter our Batmobile, this will depreciate from September to October, November, December. So this is how you would do it if you wanted to brush up depreciation. So for example, because I entered this fixed asset late, I want to catch up the depreciation, I would do it like this. Otherwise, and what I say catch up depreciation because in the GL, these transactions will be posted to period April 2018. Now, if you wanted to, if you've created an asset that was for a previous period, just like what we have, but you want to run the depreciation and post it in the correct periods, assuming you have not closed the periods yet, then you would have to run this report however many times for each individual period that you've missed. Okay, so I'm just going to do a catch-up depreciation. Going to run this. And then so in our report, we can see for the moment, it's still got 0 depreciation on it. Now, if we take a look at the report, it should be done. So let's refresh. And now we can see it's calculated £300 per month per depreciation. Okay. So that's pretty much it for depreciation. I mean, it's as simple as that. So as I said earlier, you can have multiple steps to your depreciation if you want to check with your proposals and everything, but I've just simplified the whole process and made it a one-step process. And because of that, look how easy and look how simple it was to run a depreciation. So if if you're currently experiencing you need 1 full day to do your fixed assets every month end, you can just simply click a button on this in this fixed asset module, and you should, you're on to your merry way kind of thing. It's all done for you essentially. So yeah, what else is there to show? Just a bit of an overview of the fixed asset module, other transactions that we can do. So we've got capitalization, additions, revaluations, and sales and disposals, and also reversals. So the advantage of using a fixed asset module as well. So in your sales and disposals, we'll just take an example. We can do partial sales and partial disposals. So we can do it by amount or by percentage, 20%. It will automatically calculate that it will be 3,600 for that particular asset. And not only that, if you've done, let's say you did a fixed asset depreciation at the end of the month, but then you realize that you've sold the asset previously or partially sold it, UBW will actually, what's the word? It will adjust the depreciation for that month. So it will recognize how much you've taken out or how much you've sold, and it will adjust the portion of the depreciation that is no longer there. Okay, so those are just some of the little tricks that UBW can do that possibly an Excel spreadsheet could not do. There's also depreciation simulation if you want to run your budget numbers against it. And that's about it, really. So the report I created got capitalization date, remaining useful life, the asset cost, and the asset depreciation broken down into months. And all this information is on the system, so which is why I can pull it out as a report. We've got a total depreciation, accumulated depreciation brought forward, disposals, and finally the net book value at year end. So we can track that. So all this information UBW has calculated and displayed so we can report on any facet of fixed assets. Okay, so that's what I had on the agenda. I guess I'll throw it up to you guys for some Q&A. Let's see how we can unmute everyone. Okay, so first of all, thank you for everyone who listened and stayed to the webinar. I hope it has been useful, and if you, especially if you've never used a fixed asset module or a fixed asset system before, hopefully this has been an eye-opener. So I guess I'll throw it up to you guys. Do you guys have any questions?
I've got a question, please.
Okay.
Hi. Can you add more than one invoice to one asset number?
Yes, you can.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, that was the other thing I didn't add. Yes, but you can.
Okay. Right. Okay. And after I've got a second question there. Is there any way, I saw on one of the examples there's a little tick box for grant. Is that for attaching a grant to an invoice, to an asset?
So the grant tick box is actually to, so rather than using the fixed asset module as a fixed asset module, you use it as a grant module in a sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not attaching a grant.
It's not attaching a grant.
No, it's not attaching a grant, but you create a grant instead, and then every month you deduct from it.
Right. So the system will then amortize that grant when it does the depreciation.
Correct. That's
yeah.
Right.
Okay. Super. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. That's all my questions. Thanks.
Okay.
Hello.
Hi.
Can you hear us?
Yes.
Hi. We have a question.
Yep.
We tried to create an asset, and it gave us an error message which said that the attributes in the input transaction are inconsistent with the account rule attributes. So I was trying to find out, I can see my account rule attributes, but I'm trying to figure out how I see the asset attributes that we've created, which are causing the error.
Okay. So you're saying it's an asset that you've created, wasn't it?
Yes, we want to create an asset from an invoice.
Yep.
So the invoice was posted, and we were just trying to actually run the asset. I think it's the asset proposal to create the asset, or the posting proposal to capitalize the asset. And it's a bit tricky because the attributes, I can't see which attribute is causing the problem.
Okay. So few places to look. So in the asset, so in the create asset invoices, you're not able to save the asset yet. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah. Oh, it did save it.
Oh, it did save it. Okay. So if you pull up that asset in the if you pull up that asset in the asset master file, you would be able to see the attributes in the GL analysis tab.
Okay. Okay, great.
Okay, so you could see it there, but also I think if you go into maintenance of audit reports and actually go into your ATO3 that's failed.
Okay.
Let me see. I think I did a similar error to yours earlier.
Oh, okay, great.
if you show log up at the top.
Yes.
And then scroll down. There should be an error message here. So, for example, mine says row ID, amount 60,000, account 10201, but error values dim1 equals blank and dim7 equals blank.
I see. So to read the error log, you should just really look for the stars to tell us
Yeah,
where the error is.
Correct.
Oh. Okay, now I know that. Great.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
That's okay.
Okay. So we just look at where the error is, and that should tell us what we are doing incorrectly.
Yes. So you might need to amend whatever dims that need correcting, but also if you run the proposal and it still doesn't work, you might need to change your attributes using the changes and corrections screen. And there's a change posting category values report that you have to run.
Okay. Okay, and this might change. This is where we can change the attribute values.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's got an existing category 1 value and a new category 1. So if your category 1 is cost center, then you would just say change the or you would just say the existing and then the new category value and run it for that particular asset.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. Wow. Thanks a lot. That's great.
Okay.
We'll give that a try. Thanks a lot.
Any more questions? Okay, if there are no more questions, I think we'll just end it there. Would anyone like a recording of this webinar?
Yes, please.
I'll see whether the recording is any good, and if it is, then I can send it through to you guys.
Yeah, okay, that'd be good.
I'll just send it to everyone who's on the list,
Right,
and then
we'll
go from there. Thank you guys for attending.
Okay. All right, lovely. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.